So I want to get through the first lot pretty quickly because some more exciting stuff's actually at the end of the presentation. So yeah, we'll hit through it. So just in case you don't know where we are, so Shellharbour is located about 80 kilometres south of Sydney. We've got a population of about 69,000, which is estimated to grow to about 85,000 by 2036. So we've got some massive growth forecast for our area. The land area itself is 147 square kilometres, and we've got beaches, rivers, rural areas, national parks and state parks. So in terms of the infrastructure that council manages, we own and operate the Dunmore Recycling and Waste Disposal Depot. It has a landfill, really dodgy transfer station to begin with, and very rudimentary organics processing facility. So I suppose why did we get to this point and why did we start the journey? This is our site in 2010. So down the bottom there you can see the landfilling activities that were going on. Up the top of the screen there, that concrete, the asphalt hard stand is the small vehicle transfer station. And we also had we were sand mining prior to landfilling a number of years ago, but we don't do that anymore. Oh, sorry. And then on the bottom right is where the composting was happening at the time. So because of the amount of growth we were experiencing, council was starting to get a little bit concerned that we didn't actually have the infrastructure to cater for the community size we were going to end up with. So we needed to make sure we had that infrastructure in place, and it was going to be a sustainable and long-term facility that could manage what was coming into our site. The other concerns we had, the transfer station, there was fall from height risks. The old transfer station was destined to become the last landfill cell on our site. Resource recovery levels were really, really poor on our site as well, so we needed to make a few changes to what was going on. So the journey started in 2007 with an infrastructure and operations report and concluded in December 2017. So it took us a while to get there. What we'll do now is just run through the main parts of it.
Don't want to rub it in to anyone, but the end of the story is new infrastructure, so just to start that.
So yeah, in 2007 there was an infrastructure and operations improvement report that was done, which essentially led to another review done by HIDA that looked at the current composting arrangements we had and recommendation to move toward a more controlled system. To support that infrastructure that was going to come online, in 2008 we changed our curbside system. So we introduced a organics bin. We had monthly bagged and bundled prior to that, and we also went to full fortnightly only waste, and it was fortnightly organics, fortnightly yellow.
I'd just say at that point too, we're seeing a lot of trends, a lot of the collection contracts that are coming out with, we might want to do this at some point in the future, but I think the fact that Courtney at the time had already looked at the processing infrastructure end and was already talking about what might happen on that front meant that was a serious consideration in that part.
So in 2010, we modified our licence at our site and we created a landfill licence and a resource recovery licence. We moved the organics processing over to that site. There was also a regional infrastructure study done on what was then the Southern Council's group, but is now ISJO, and that identified a need for more processing capacity in the region. And we took that into consideration when we were going down the design phase of this project. And Council endorsed its waste strategy, which then also reaffirmed the introduction of the organics collection and Council's investment in moving into this major infrastructure investment. So, if anyone's actually tried to build an infrastructure in New South Wales, it's a pretty painful process. So, in 2012, we got what were then known as the Director General requirements from the Department of Planning, and that essentially gave us the guidelines and the parameters for what would then be our EIS and DA submission for the approval. 2013, we got those DGRs, and then that meant we could actually move forward with our master plan and start thinking about the more detailed design phase of the project. And in terms of the overall works that would include, it was some embellishment of our existing revolve shop, so there was new asphalt works, an awning going over the top, the completely enclosed transfer station, new FOGO plant, dual weighbridge and gatehouse, and an admin building for our staff.
I think if you guys remember what that site looks like, it's a really weird, awkward, guitar-shaped site. It's quite a bizarre footprint, but thinking about all those infrastructure elements in the context of how they'd all fit and work together, I think it was a really important master planning, and it wasn't something that was done stage by stage and you find that one thing's locked out the next thing. It was all thought about how they'd work together.
So then in 2014, the EIS and the DA were prepared. There was a business case that went to our council at the time and it was approved by the council, And that also included potential funding options coming out of the Waste Less Recycle More program, because that was announced at roughly the same time that we were going through this part. So then that meant that we were on the forefront of those applications. We were able to secure some money quite early because we'd done a lot of the planning and the prep, and the timing was pretty much spot on for us, which was really, really good. Interesting lodging a DA as a council project to council. There was an extra level of rigour put on us, and it wasn't an easy process to actually submit our DA through council itself, and because of the value of it and the type of development it was, it ended up having to be assessed by the Joint Regional Planning Authority. So 2015, finally got the DA approved, which meant we could actually get down to the business end of the project. We got 2.05 million from the infrastructure grant through Waste Less Recycle More, and 1.85 million for the large organics infrastructure Waste Less Recycle More grant program. There was an open tender process undertaken for the design and construction of the transfer station and the ancillary works linked with that. And then we did an EOI process for the FOGO plant. So we had 10 submissions initially, that was shortlisted down to 3. The original EOI was in December 2015, and then the shortlisted select tender process happened in June 2016.
I'll just make the comment there, like sometimes those two-stage processes as an operator, it's not necessarily a great thing. You know, it can be two things you got to do. The thing that gave us a lot of confidence, and we were really happy with that two-stage process, was that the list got narrower. I've been in a few EOIs where, you know, there's 10 in and 10 back out, and you go, well, that was just wasted time, and you know, you took up my resources. We could have been doing something more useful, but it actually did lead to a more targeted attempt, which was good.
We also engaged external project management that ran in parallel with council's own internal project management team that we have. There was also a project control group established, which was representatives from like councillors, the GM was on there, directors, group managers, and also the technical staff. So there was a very close eye kept on us. The only other large project that council had going on at the time was the Shell Cove Marina, if anyone's heard of that, which is also the Civic Centre, which is a $60 million project. So we were the second one underneath that. So late 2015, we awarded the contract with the civil contractor for the transfer station works, and then in early 2016, the contract was awarded to Re.group for the FOGO plant. So in terms of... Can I say something about your contract before you get...
Sorry. Sure. But I think it's really important, and particularly in the context of some very complicated structures that are out there. But one thing to really note about this was that it was a really sensible contract arrangement. There's a couple of examples in there of things that could have been, and in a lot of cases become, really painfully stupid. One of the things was it's an old landfill site, and I guess that council could have taken the view that we have to take all risk on contamination and ground conditions, which obviously for us would have been a pretty risky venture given the nature of the site. Instead, council took a much more mature, I think, approach of saying, right, we'll get to a flat pad. You know, that's our job, that's our site. We'll get you to a flat pad. You've got all the risk of everything above the pad, but that suits us. We're happy to take that risk. We just can't take risks that we're going, well, we have no control over it, we've got no history of it, we don't know the site. So overall, it was a really sensible contract basis, and it, you know, made it that we had discussions about real things and real issues, not about things that were outside of each other's control. Yeah. Sorry.
And so you actually see from this next lot of footage where the FOGO building's built is actually on top of what were our old leachate ponds. So this is the site. So in when was it? August 2016, we handed the site over to our civil contractor to start the council-controlled aspects of the civil works. Total construction time was 16 months, and at the same time of doing all the civil works from council's perspective, we also implemented a brand new weighbridge software system on our site. So we replaced the existing one with Mandalay. So it was almost, you know, new site, new start for us in terms of that. So what's being built at the moment is the transfer station, and then you'll see the FOGO plant come in on the right-hand side. So for us, we had some pretty horrible weather at one point. And then we had some significant hold-ups. We had Sydney Water decide that we needed to put in a brand new water main, which was an extra 800 grand to our budget that we hadn't factored in, and time.
Yeah, but again, just in terms of sensible arrangements, so we ended up engaging the same contractor that was doing work there. It would have been a challenging site, as you can see, having two major construction projects on a pretty tight site. So we had the same civil contractor for the earthworks component and building the shed, which I guess eliminated those interface risks, and at least it was an argument for them about who they sent the invoice to, rather than no, this isn't my scope, that's their scope.
And Re.group were really accommodating. They were happy to go with the same colour bond colour that I liked, so that was really nice.
Except for we did, yeah, I've got to say though, I don't know if anyone else notices, but see the air vents on the transfer station shed? How much does that look like a religious institution?
Oh. I just saw that. Fair enough.
Sorry.
And so then the FOGO plant was just under 12 months construction time for the FOGO plant component of the works, including the windrow pad as well. So in terms of operations, so the first part of the works to open, you can see that in the background the construction site of the other facility is still going, but the Revolve Centre was what was opened up first. So we constructed the massive awning over that site. There's two really daggy sheds underneath, which I promised Maddie will replace at some point, but essentially increase the amount of available covered area they have to store stuff. And then the tinkerage there is a workspace that we created where people can upcycle and repair their goods.
Back to the master planning aspect, sorry, the thing that I really like about the site is that everyone who comes on site has to drive past there, has to go past that reuse centre before they can go to the drop-off, and which is not uncommon, I guess, but they also got to go back past it once their trailers and boots are empty, to get back off the site. So, you know, in terms of encouraging reuse and pickup, it's a smart master plan.
Okay, so this is the transfer station. So it's approximately 100 metres by 50 metres. There's two distinct areas. So that's the resource recovery component, which includes an EPA-funded CRC section and numerous other items that council has introduced for recovery. So it'll go through a list of all the things that people can drop off there. And then there's a push pit at the end. So essentially we put might be a metre high wall. So we've gone from a fall from height risk to residents now dumping stuff over a wall. The only thing that's actually permanent in that building is the push pit area. All this other infrastructure at the front end is relocatable. Nothing is. So we can change the way this building works. We're intending it to be there for a really long time. So we wanted the flexibility in how we could actually accept material in, what we were accepting, how we were accepting it. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, but I think overall it's a really good example of delivering infrastructure for a 20-year time frame. I think all of these were on a 20-year plan, and you know it is a big transfer station and it's a big FOGO facility for what's currently used. But you know, thinking ahead and thinking about, well, in 20 years' time, is it still going to be suitable for everything that's going on?
So this is you.
Right. So in terms of the FOGO facility, it's a tunnel composting facility. Cool. Tunnel composting facility. Philip from NALG would tell you all about the technical details. It's a Christian's controls. I guess probably one thing to point out: elevated picking station, which we have as standard in all our facilities. It's, if you look at OH&S risks around this, you know, the place that people die is, you know, doing things on the floor near mobile plant. So we're always getting our workers up into a safe location. Can talk for lots and lots and lots, but it's a tunnel composting facility.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of performance, before we changed the way we were doing things, we were only getting about 8% recovery out of our entire site, which is pretty pathetic. Since opening the new transfer station, we have propped that up to 24%, but there's still a fair bit of room for us to improve on that.
When did you open? Sorry.
4th of December last year. So it's not, we've only got sort of 6 months worth of data. In terms of the Revolve shop has had the most, I suppose, impressive performance. Their sales have doubled since just by putting that awning on and improving that area of space they've got to store items. So FOGO, recoveries, contamination levels are currently sitting around 1%, and our resource recovery levels are really high. So we're really happy with how that system's been embraced by our community.
Not nearly so happy as her contractor is, because the contamination levels are a great testament to how well everything else is working.
Yeah. So quickly on the contract arrangement with the Re.group and council, it's a build, own, operate with a peppercorn lease. It's 10-year plus 2 5-year extensions, and council actually offered up the $1.85 million we got in the grant funding to offset the capital component of the gate fee we're going to be charged by Re.group. I'm inspired to talk about sensible contract arrangements, but some other aspects of that contract I think which really work in this. The contractors, the collection contractors have a real role to play in this as well. So as the processor, we don't have much control over what's delivered to us. You know, we can process it, but we don't have control over it. So a lot of
a lot of that responsibility sits with the collections. And Ramondas do a fantastic job of monitoring that, but they're the guys who see what they're putting in the trucks. They're the ones who are actually at the coalface and can make a decision as to where that goes. And I know they're working very closely with council and doing really good education, but 1% contamination rates, it's a fantastic outcome. It certainly makes our life a lot easier, and which is easy for everyone.
Okay, so one thing that council wanted to do, we have this great infrastructure in place now, but we need to make sure we're putting good stuff in to get good stuff out the back end. So last year we engaged Iris, who's a local research survey company in the Wollongong area, and we surveyed over 600 residents to work out how they're actually using the service and how we can engage with them better. So there was a couple of TV ads that were produced in response to those survey results. So this first one is essentially just thanking our residents.
Shellharbour, we want to say thanks. Thanks for embracing FOGO and helping us turn food and garden waste into usable compost. With your help, we've collected close to 3,000 tonnes more food and garden waste this year than we did last year, and reduced our general waste by over 2,000 tonnes. That's about the size of 68 humpback whales, which means a whole lot less landfill. So if you haven't jumped on board, remember, it's good to go FOGO.
Okay, so this next one, we were missing out on the 18 to 35-year-old male demographic. They liked being engaged by TV commercials, but all the TV ads we'd previously done, there wasn't a very strong male presence, and this is what we came up with.
Where'd you pick up that bit of rubbish? It's FOMO, fear of missing out, not FOGO.
Mate, FOMO is over. It's for Bieber fans and Snapchatters. FOGO is food organics, garden organics. It's the future.
Huh?
FOGO, it's where council picks up all your green waste and food scraps, like this sad sucker, and turns them into compost. If we all do it, we cut pollution and landfill. Fill up your FOGO bin and don't have FOMO about FOGO.
YOLO?
No, bro.
So that was initially lost on me because I had no idea what they were. I had to get those explained to me, so I apologise for anyone else, but it seems to have worked. It's gotten a really good response. And then this last one we've done, we were then also missing out on the 18 to 25-year-old bracket that has a really social media focus. Whilst this one's actually been played on TV, the intent is to really push it through the social media channels, and create posters and that sort of stuff out of it.
Australians waste a lot of food. But around here, we're turning that waste into rich, usable organic compost through something we call FOGO. By putting your food and garden waste into your FOGO bin, you can help us reduce rubbish and a whole lot of landfill and keep our local area beautiful. Let's make something better out of food and garden waste and put back into the earth some of what we take from it. Fill up your FOGO bin today. It's good to go FOGO.
I suppose the reason why I wanted to show those was, again, we've got this great infrastructure that can work really well, but if we're putting crap in, we're going to get crap out. So you need a really strong education campaign behind the infrastructure that's there. So really quickly, lessons learned. It took us 10 years to get here, so pull your finger out, get onto it as soon as you can, because there's so many things that can happen in between that you have no control over. Like we had a council that went into administration. I then had to sell it again to a whole new council that was then re-elected. The sales pitch started all over again for us when we were so far down the track. They actually used bringing back a weekly red bin as part of their election campaign. So there's things, local council, that they're all the issues. Don't panic about what you can't control. I mean, as I said, we had Sydney Water saying to us, you've got to put a new water pipe in. Well, okay, where are we going to pull 800 grand out of? Well, we have to, because otherwise the project's not going to open. You can't make everyone happy, so we've actually lost some smaller commercial customers because they don't like having to tip stuff over a wall. They were used to pushing it under a fence. But to me, our priority is our residents. If we lose a few commercial customers, well, Wollongong might be happy. So, you go.
Yeah, just one thing on that, and Hazel's introduction talked about Courtney having been here from start to finish, but the importance of individuals and individual champions within these organisations. I don't know where this project would have been without the one constant being Courtney at every stage there and being able to re-educate those other stakeholders and bring them along with it. But everyone else who was involved in the project changed at some point. But the importance of having strong champions, and I hope everyone stays in their current roles forever. But just having that strong champion internally was critical to the success.
And don't give up. Remember why you started, because now that this is all over, it's like, whew. But, we've still got a fair bit of work to do, and, but it's good. We're really happy.
I'll just say one more other thing.
Yep.
It's just about the partnership approach. Lots of us talk about the importance of partnership between contractors and councils, but it's that there are real tangible benefits. We're all in this together. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to deliver something good for the community. You can't have a contract that says one thing and then talk about partnership if it doesn't reflect that. But I think there's a sensible basis. We all know what our responsibilities are, and we all get flogged hard on the things that are our responsibility. But being able to actually really work together in a sensible approach is the way to get the best outcomes for the community. It's not about the contract, it's about the partnership and the approach of working together.
Thanks.